workload on the passport service due to increased numbers of inquiries and requests for passports, particularly following Britain's decision to leave the European Union. I now call on Senator Gallagher to make his opening remarks, and following this we can have questions and answers and discussion on this very important issue.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Gallagher, we're in public session, so you're very welcome, and if you can proceed with your presentation.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And at the outset, I want to thank yourself and indeed the committee members for affording me the opportunity here this morning to address you. I know your time is precious, and I promise this will be short and to the point. I think it's fair to say, and probably widely acknowledged, that no part of the country is more affected by Brexit than the border counties, and I think it's the impact, I suppose, of the referendum and the hard Brexit is magnified in County Monaghan, which has experienced Brexit on a macro and micro level on a daily basis. Brexit in Monaghan and the border counties is not 2 years down the line, it's very much here now for that community. It's interesting to note that we've had a considerable spike in demand for passports in recent times since Brexit. Last year, 2016, over 750,000 Irish passports were issued, of which up 70,000 on last year's figure, which represents or 2015 figure, which represents a 9% increase. Of the 750 applicants, 68,000 came from Northern Ireland and 64,000 from Great Britain. The numbers from Northern Ireland represent a 26% increase in the numbers from Great Britain and 40% increase on 2015 levels. It is projected that these numbers will continue to grow in 2017 and beyond as the devastating realities of a hard Brexit begin to become more exposed. Public representatives like myself and others living along the border areas have noticed a huge number of inquiries from citizens living north of the border in relation to how they go about getting an Irish passport. All of this, as you can imagine, has created extra pressures on the existing passport office, and we feel that this is timely, that we should look perhaps at making the case to locate a passport office in a place like Monaghan that would look after the northern part of our country. Monaghan, just a bit of background for you, we feel is ideally located from a geographic perspective in that it surrounds three counties, Tyrone, Armagh and Fermanagh. And it should also be noted that Monaghan is located along the M2, and as you know, citizens travelling from Donegal and Derry have to travel through Monaghan on their way to Dublin. As well as that, it's also on the main link from Belfast to the west of Ireland through Galway, also have to travel through County Monaghan as well on their journey. So we feel from that perspective that Monaghan is ideally located. It's more than capable of holding such a facility, being centrally located, and is quite qualified to deliver a sharp, efficient and timely service. I think the location of a passport office in a county like Monaghan would send out a very positive signal from government, and I feel would create an economic stimulus for the private sector and in the border area generally, which I have stated earlier is suffering greatly from the impact of Brexit, and as I said, unfortunately will continue to do so. The retail and agriculture, and particularly the mushroom industry, has been particularly badly hit since Brexit in the county. The fluctuations of sterling have led to serious price differentials for growers, with fears of job losses continuing to grow. Monaghan is probably too heavily reliant on the food sector generally, and those jobs are generally low skilled and low paid, and as you would be aware, we are heavily dependent on the UK market for exports. It's also interesting to note that 85% of all the school children that do the Leaving Cert, 85% of those go on to third level education, and that's very much to be welcomed, and 87% of that figure subsequently go on and qualify to read level. The only problem we have is that when we do educate them, unfortunately there is nothing for them in their home county to take them home, and that's an issue that we need to we definitely need to investigate and explore further. As you'd imagine, being close to the border, retail can be particularly difficult, and the fluctuations in currency can lead to quite a number of people going to Northern Ireland to shop. And that uncertainty, if you like, is not good for business and subsequently has an impact on jobs and job retention. I'm saddened to say that in relation to aid visits and inward investment in the county, over the last number of years, I think it's something like 4 to 5 visits over 2 years to the county, and unfortunately nothing came from those small number of visits. The government has made great noise in recent times, and rightly so, I would suggest, in relation to rural Ireland and about the regeneration of rural Ireland and the regions generally. I think in relation to this particular issue, I think the government has a great opportunity here to make a very, very positive statement about rural Ireland, and I think the fact that they would locate or consider locating a passport office in County Monaghan to service the northern part of our country would send out a very positive message to the general community and indeed to the private sector, that the private sector might look at this region and look at Monaghan as a potential location going forward. Finally, and I'm almost fit to conclude, Chairman, a hard Brexit would potentially bring further issues in relation to border crossings and border patrols, and that, God knows, is the last thing we want to see. I think a passport office would aid the continued cooperation that currently exists between North and South. Finally, I'm urging Minister Charlie Flanagan and his department, and indeed this committee, to give serious consideration to this proposal of examining a passport office to cater for the northern part of our country. I think, as I said earlier, it would have sent a very positive statement out that government is taking rural Ireland seriously, is taking the region seriously, and is taking a county and the future of the county like Monaghan very seriously as well. Finally, Chairman, I'd like to thank you again for your time, and indeed thank the committee members for your time this morning, and I wish you and the committee well in your work in the future.
Thank you very much, Senator Gallagher. It's a very important subject matter, and as you quite rightly pointed out, those of us who live in the border region are public representatives. We have a huge increase in the number of people contacting us from north of the border in regard to passport services. I know my own office, and I receive calls myself, as I know you do, from chatting to you, Senator Gallagher, as well. A huge number of people applying for passports, and people whose family members proposed to apply for Irish passports in the future from the north of Ireland. So I think your proposal is a very good one. There's a passport office, a public office in Dublin and one in Cork. If we were to deal with the reality that there will be an increasing number of people from Northern Ireland seeking Irish passports following Brexit, then I believe that your proposal to have a public office adjacent or very centrally situated in the northern half of the country, catering for areas on both sides of the border, is a very, very worthy one. I know that immediately after Christmas I had a huge number of calls from Tyrone, Fermanagh and Armagh from people who were about to apply or seeking information in regard to our passport service. And I think it's very heartening that people are applying for Irish passports, and we should make it as easy as possible if people wish to go to a public office. You know, departments nowadays and statutory agents would say you can get everything online. Everybody doesn't have the capacity to go online, and it's simply not acceptable that there's not ready access to a public office if a person wants to go and meet the officials in person dealing with the subject matter. But I think it's a very good proposal that I would be hoping that our committee would support, and personally I'd be very supportive of your proposal, Senator Gallagher. Deputy Barrett, did you want to just say a quick word?
I'm happy with your support.
Thank you very much, Deputy Barrett. Senator Mark Daly.
Yeah, could I support Senator Gallagher and yourself in relation to this concept, because it's a case well made, and Brexit obviously makes it more relevant. And you know, we have a passport office down in Cork. and there's obviously the one in Dublin, but there is nothing to facilitate anybody north of Galway, Dublin, to get a passport appointment. So if you're coming from Donegal to Dublin, it's a long way to go, whereas people from Kerry, Limerick, Waterford can go to Cork, and it's a huge difference. So to an element, what we're highlighting here accidentally is discrimination by anybody north of Galway, Dublin, and under the Good Friday Agreement, everybody within Northern Ireland is entitled to be a citizen of the Irish state, and they are citizens of the Irish nation. Now, then they should all be treated equally and have equal access to passports, especially, the issue of emergency passports. I had a phone call from someone in Donegal last night, and, I said, there's nothing can be done. You simply cannot get to that passport office in time to get a flight in Knock. It was that. Whereas if it was Monaghan and you were coming from Donegal and you went to Monaghan and then it's only down the road to Knock. So that's a practical element of what Senator Gallagher is talking about. So I think it's something that maybe we should put forward as a formal motion in the committee, and when the Minister is in, Chairman, we could raise it and maybe Senator Gallagher come to that meeting and put it forward, because Brexit makes it relevant in what is our overall response to Brexit, and particularly in the area of citizenship, because the passport office, as many of you would be aware, is now absolutely overwhelmed. Whereas before, if there was an emergency passport in relation to a bereavement and people had to